We all know one. A man who looks like an adult, sounds like an adult, and maybe even holds down a job or a relationship. But the moment things get real, he disappears into immaturity. He avoids responsibility, crumbles under pressure, and needs to be mothered more than loved. He is not dangerous, not abusive, not toxic in the obvious way. He is just emotionally undercooked. This is the man-child. And in today's world, he is not rare. He is everywhere. But why? Why are some men physically grown, but emotionally stuck in adolescence? Why do they struggle with commitment, discipline, and accountability, while appearing charming, playful, and even charismatic? The truth is uncomfortable, but it is rooted in psychology. The man-child is not simply lazy. He is a product of arrested development. Somewhere along the way, his growth was paused, not biologically, but emotionally. He never learned how to be uncomfortable without running away. He never internalized the structure of masculinity that turns a boy into a man. Instead, he stayed in the safety of emotional childhood. Let us break this down. In healthy development, a boy slowly takes on more responsibility, learns to regulate his emotions, and begins to shift from self-centeredness to purpose. He learns to lead himself first, then others. He becomes capable of being depended on, not just in theory, but in practice. But when that development is interrupted by overparenting, underparenting, trauma, indulgence, or even cultural messaging, a split happens. On the outside, the boy grows into a man. On the inside, he stays stuck in survival mode, avoiding pain, chasing pleasure, escaping discomfort. So when adult life demands something from him, whether it is consistency, sacrifice, or maturity, he reverts. He gets defensive. He makes excuses. Or worse, he looks for a woman to play the role his mother once did. This is why relationships with a man-child often feel draining. You are not just loving a partner, you are parenting a partner. You find yourself explaining basic emotional truths, managing their moods, picking up the slack they leave behind. It is not always malicious. Sometimes it is subtle, but it is always exhausting. And here is the paradox. Many man-children do not even realize they are stuck. Because on the surface, they are functional. They have jobs. They have friends. They might even be funny, smart, or talented. But when it comes to the inner work, the emotional muscles required to grow up, they are malnourished. This immaturity is often masked by charm. They know how to be likable. They are often humorous, rebellious, and non-threatening. They make you feel needed. And that is the trap. Their softness feels safe, until you realize it is not strength behind the softness. It is avoidance. Avoidance of responsibility. Avoidance of introspection. Avoidance of growth. The man-child lives in a loop of comfort-seeking and blame-shifting. He wants the rewards of adulthood without the weight of it. And unless something breaks that loop, he stays there, stuck in the emotional adolescence of his own making. The man-child is not born, he is shaped. And to understand why so many men are emotionally stuck, we have to look beyond individual choices. We have to zoom out to family systems, cultural shifts, and the subtle ways modern life encourages extended adolescence. Let us start with parenting. Many man-children come from homes where responsibility was either over-enforced or under-enforced. In some cases, the boy was babied, rescued from every consequence, shielded from discomfort, overpraised for doing the bare minimum. He never had to try hard, because someone was always there to catch him. He grew up believing that maturity would just happen with age. In other cases, He was neglected, emotionally, if not physically. He was told to man up without ever being shown how. He learned to suppress his needs, hide his vulnerability, and figure things out alone. On the surface, he seems independent. But emotionally, he is fragile, because nobody ever modeled healthy strength. Either extreme leads to the same result: emotional immaturity. Now add culture to the mix. We live in a society where boys are often taught that masculinity means dominance or detachment. Emotional literacy is not encouraged. Vulnerability is mocked. Responsibility is delayed. There is no clear rite of passage from boyhood to manhood, just a vague expectation to grow up one day, without any tools to do so. What we get is a generation of men who know how to game the system, but not how to grow from it. They seek validation through distractions, video games, hookup culture, superficial ambition. They are constantly stimulated, but rarely grounded. They live online, detached from real consequences, chasing novelty over purpose. And here is the psychological twist. Many of them know something is off. They feel it in their quiet moments, in their failed relationships, in their inability to follow through. They sense the weight of manhood hovering over them, but they feel unequipped to carry it. So they double down on the coping. They turn to humor, to defensiveness, to blaming others. Anything to avoid looking in the mirror and seeing the truth, that somewhere along the way they stopped evolving. This is not about demonizing men. This is about revealing a pattern. Because the man-child is not simply annoying. He is emotionally wounded. He never learned to sit with pain, never learned to regulate anger, never learned to delay gratification, to hold space for others, to be still long enough to hear his own voice. So he keeps running from job to job, from partner to partner, from himself. And the people around him, especially those who care, are left carrying what he refuses to. You cannot grow up for someone else, but you can recognize when their growth is no longer your responsibility. Because until a man-child is ready to face himself, he will keep looking for others to fix what only he can. At the heart of the man-child's behavior are emotional patterns, quiet, consistent, and deeply ingrained. These patterns do not announce themselves loudly. They live in the background, subtle, persistent, and they shape how he shows up in every area of life. He deflects instead of reflects. When something goes wrong, he does not look inward. He points outward. It is always someone else's fault. A partner, a boss, his childhood, the system. He avoids the mirror because facing it would require him to admit that he has agency. And if he has agency, then he also has responsibility. That truth is too heavy to hold, so he shifts it onto others. He seeks pleasure over purpose. He is drawn to the quick fix. The instant dopamine, scrolling through social media, binge-watching, hookups without depth, nights that blur into mornings, anything that numbs him from the discomfort of discipline. Long-term growth feels slow, so he chooses what feels good now even if it costs him later. He performs independence while remaining emotionally dependent. On the outside, he may seem self-sufficient. He pays his own bills, lives in his own space, makes his own choices. But emotionally, he leans on others to carry him. He gravitates toward women who will mother him, friends who will tolerate his stagnation, and environments that demand little of him. He confuses freedom with avoidance. He uses charm as a shield. The man-child can be disarmingly likable, funny, even self-aware. But it is surface level. Charm is not the same as depth. His lightness is often a distraction from the work he refuses to do. People like being around him, but rarely feel truly seen, heard, or supported by him. His presence is pleasant, but not grounding. He avoids conflict at all costs. Confrontation terrifies him, not because he cannot handle it, but because deep down, he fears rejection. So he shuts down, disappears, or changes the subject when things get hard. He avoids difficult conversations, hoping problems will solve themselves. But in doing so, he stunts his relationships and sabotages his growth. These emotional patterns are not random. They are strategies built to protect him from pain, rejection, and responsibility. They are ways of surviving a world he does not feel fully equipped to handle. But the longer he leans on these patterns, the more they turn into chains. He often knows something is off. He feels the void, the restlessness, the quiet sense that he is not becoming the man he wants to be. But the weight of change feels overwhelming, and so he stays still, hoping life will get better without him having to evolve. But it will not. Growth does not happen by accident. It is a choice, and until he decides to step out of these cycles, they will continue to define his reality, silently stealing his potential, one passive decision at a time. So where does this all lead? If you recognize these patterns in yourself or in someone close to you, the most important thing to understand is this: change is possible. Growth is real. But it does not happen through shame or through wishful thinking. It happens through awareness, courage, and consistent action. The first step is honesty. Deep, unfiltered honesty. You cannot transform something you are unwilling to name. That means admitting to yourself that you have been living in comfort, avoiding discomfort, and calling it freedom. That maybe you have chosen ease over evolution and familiarity over fulfillment. The second step is grief. Not sadness alone, but true mourning. You must grieve the parts of you that were never nurtured. The boy inside who never got the guidance he needed. The fantasy that someone will show up and fix everything for you. Letting go of that illusion is painful, but it is also the beginning of maturity. Maturity is not about becoming perfect. It is about becoming accountable. It is about recognizing that your healing is your responsibility, not your partner's, not your parents', not the world's, yours. The third step is action, not massive, dramatic leaps, small, consistent choices that align with who you are trying to become. Choosing discipline over distraction, choosing honesty over avoidance, choosing presence over performance, showing up even when it is inconvenient, owning your impact even when it hurts, saying I was wrong without collapsing, saying I need help without shame, and most importantly, choosing meaning over comfort. Because real men are not built through ease. They are forged in struggle, in choices that require sacrifice, in standing firm when it would be easier to run. That is what separates the man-child from the man. Not the beard, the bank account, or the bravado, but the willingness to carry what is heavy without expecting applause. The willingness to protect, to provide, to nurture, and to lead, not out of dominance, but out of grounded strength. If you see yourself in any of this, it is not too late. In fact, awareness is the turning point, the moment you stop performing manhood and begin embodying it, the moment you stop waiting for permission and begin giving yourself the authority to grow. The world does not need more men chasing validation. It needs more men standing rooted in truth, not afraid of responsibility, not allergic to emotion, not avoidant of conflict, but present, accountable, whole. You do not become that man by accident. You become him by choice, every day, especially when it is hard, especially when it is not rewarded, especially when no one is watching. That is what real growth looks like. And that man, the one who chooses growth over comfort, character over charm, and truth over performance, is the one who transforms not just himself, but everyone around him.